That is true.
Okay. I think we're.
I should have grabbed another drink.
You should have gotten drunk. Do you want one of these fancy ones?
Hell yeah. I'll take it. Just something to keep me going.
Okay. Well, yeah, you're up and running, buddy boy.
So I can just start bullshitting?
Oh, you can start doing whatever you want to do, to be honest.
They can hear me?
Yeah. So I hope someone can hear you.
All right, what's up, bitches? It's your boy Jeremy again. Do you even DM? Right?
What's one of the most important parts of being a DM? Hold on. Don't say a word.
Really, that's what it all comes down to, if we're being honest. So, I am going to be today. We're going to be talking about things that I do as a DM, things I've seen other people do as a DM that I really like, things that kind of like take away from that, and things you can like do to improve your game. Because some of you guys suck. All right, so I'm gonna help you step your fucking game up. That's what Daddy's gonna do. Okay.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So we're going to talk about that. Eventually, I'm going to be putting up some YouTube videos, like actual YouTube content, and it's not just me recording a podcast, where I'm going to be talking about like the do's and don'ts of, playing a character, do's and don'ts of DMing, which we'll kind of hit on today. But I'll have some real content in the next little while. So, what do you really need as a DM? Really?
I don't know. I don't know because I'm not a DM.
Yeah, so you got to plan quite a bit ahead, right? You need a story.
Did you already say what a DM was?
No, okay, we can go over this again. I'll feed you baby birds if you need it.
Because I believe you mentioned on the last episode.
Yeah.
But just tell everybody out there and
so a DM is also known as a dungeon master. You might also hear GM, which is game master, similar things, right? It doesn't really matter. It really means you're the dude that's putting on the game.
Okay.
So you're the one that has to make the maps. You have to make the story. You have to do all that. You're the one having to play a bunch of NPCs, non-playable characters, and stuff like that. So you are the one that's going to have to do all of that. It's a big thing, and that's what if you're just starting out as a DM. You're brand new. You can do a couple of things. You can buy a box set. They actually have them. I actually think you have one.
I do. Yep, I do. To be quite honest with you, the very first time I ever opened that up and started reading, I was clueless.
Yeah.
So thank you for saving us.
Yeah. You want to get kind of familiar with the rules. You don't want to just open up that box and play that day, right? You want to read it a little bit and kind of get it, right? So you can buy the box set, which usually comes with a set of dice. It usually comes with a small map and like a little bit of a story. Honestly, though, Daddy's cheap, right? So you can go online and find sessions. They print them out. I print them out at least because I like to have
like stories that people have created. I guess?
They'll have a story. It'll show a map, so you can draw the map if you'd like. You can. It'll tell you what's in each room, so they describe it obviously better than some of us idiots can, and so you can. You already kind of have this story, so you're like, oh, which room did you go in? K1. Okay, well, K1 says, and then you can describe it, right?
Gotcha.
So you're not really you're just reading from this book, but it's a good starter. That's what we started out with.
Okay. We meaning who?
Like me and my buddies. So me, my buddy Patrick, Chris, and Jordan.
All right.
So we got actually kind of lucky because I knew somebody. Legitimately, he's like 70 years old. He played Dungeons and Dragons when it was weird, and
because it's not anymore.
Yeah, it's not anymore.
It's mainstream.
It's mainstream now.
It is. That is true.
But so he had a bunch of little session booklets that are legitimately from like 1970s. I actually think
that's kind of cool.
I think it started in 1970, but it was like early, right?
Right at the beginning.
Yeah. So we took that. I took one of the ones that was kind of lower in. Gameplay, like a lower end level, and then we just started playing, and it was really nice at first. And honestly, I actually still use that map and that storyline for a lot of beginners that I've never played with. I have it fairly memorized if I can see the map in front of me of like what's in there, kind of how to describe it and stuff like that. So
look at the big dick on that guy.
I don't want to be bougie, but I'm kind of a badass. No, But I use it actually quite often, and I actually like the map. It's a good starter, and like I said, if that's how you're if you're just starting out and you've never DM'd before, it's a good way to kind of get involved with it.
Okay.
So you can start out with that. You can either go print them offline. Most of them are. I mean, you can find some free ones which are good. I would never pay for them. If you're going to pay for them, that's great. That's good on you. And
Well, it gives money to somebody.
Yeah, it gives money to somebody, right? Support local businesses. But I do not, and screw that. I'm going to do it for freezy. So I ain't paying for dick. So you could do that. You need really basic. You need you need a story, you need some dice because that's what you have to roll. That's pretty much, and then a basic knowledge of the rules. That's really all you need. Very basic. Now you do get into something a lot of them.
Now you're talking about just as a player though, right?
No, this is as a DM. Really, if you have a story and you have and you have dice and you have and you have a knowledge of the game, you can pretty much DM. Like I can pretty much DM on the fly.
Okay.
Right? If I have a story in mind and I have dice, we could do that on a car ride if we really wanted to. Right? We wouldn't, but we could.
Why wouldn't you? I think that'd make for an interesting car ride.
That would actually make it. But I wouldn't trust people with their dice because you can't see them.
Okay.
Untrustful bastards. So, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about fake dice and a whole bunch of other ways people cheat like little fuckers. But anyway, so you'll need that story, right? You bring your and then obviously you need friends because you need people to play with. If you're just DMing by yourself, just write a book. So the friends part will be hard, but other than that. Usually I think a good group is you and 4 others. I've played with groups that are smaller than that, and that gets kind of tricky. And like most of the time, there's a thing called on Monsters called a it's a number that shows like how strong they are, right? Okay. And it's a CR. It's a challenge rating, and usually it's based on 4 players in a group. So it'll say like if it's CR4, that means that 4 level 4. Okay, let's do a different thing so it doesn't.
I'm already confused.
CR6.
Okay.
That means 4 characters that are at level 6 should be able to defeat this monster. It would be a challenging fight, but that'll be a good fight for this monster. And you can kind of use that CR rating to know how hard to make it for your players, right? And you obviously fluctuate it and stuff like that, but for the most part, that's a good way to rate it, and that's why they do it, because obviously they need to make it easy for people.
Right, right. So so now just to be clear, to go back, don't be throwing drinks all around the studio here.
I won't.
But just to be clear for people, this episode is mostly geared around guys that, or gals rather, people that know how to play the game, right? And or you trying to introduce people into what DMing is, because like
a little bit of both, right? Like I think you'll get some stuff from this if you have DM'd before, and maybe if you've DM'd before and you're trying to get better, right? And also this is for people that are just starting out, and like I said, it is a lot of knowledge, and you're gonna have to look it up yourself.
Yeah.
Right. I'll try to explain certain things as much as I can, like I just did CR rating. But it is going to be something that you're going to have to look into, especially as a DM. As a player, you don't have to know as much. That's why it's really beneficial if you can find somebody who can DM. If you're a player, all you have to do is memorize your character, right? Okay. All you have to do is memorize the things your character can do and what they can't do. Boom, you're done, right? If somebody throws a black dragon at you, your character wouldn't know, well, this CR rating is 17. We can't fight this thing. It's, would your character fight a goddamn black dragon? The answer should be no. You fucking run. It's a black dragon. That's scary as hell.
Yeah, because nobody likes a black dragon.
Let's not get held on.
Go after a green one or a purple.
Well, not because they're black. We're talking just because they're scary and they use electricity. And honestly, if a black dragon...
Is that the worst dragon?
No, I think the worst technically is still a red, which is like... Or a golden dragon. It uses fire. All the worst ones are fire, even though that's like the easiest to get immunity to. We'll get into that too. The reason I think black dragons are the scariest, again, not because they're black, but if they shot electricity from the fire, I'm like, yeah, every fucking dragon blows fire, right? If a dragon blows electricity, they're like, that's not physically possible. Like I've heard like possibilities of like dragons having ignitable saliva, and then when they spit it, they create a spark. You can actually watch this in Reign of Fire, I think it is. They talk about how dragons how explain electricity coming out of their goddamn mouth. You can't. That's impossible. That's a scary fucking beast.
I thought the same thing. I was like, well, clearly you could spit fire, and it would be just fine.
Electricity? They didn't even know. Anyway. So, you don't even know.
So what? Okay, I don't mean to get hung up on
black dragons. Yeah,
your dragon
red eyes,
talk.
black dragons. Yu-Gi-Oh fans. Anyway,
but what other dragons are there?
There's a ton. There's there's green, which usually does. I think it does acidic
Spits
damage.
Weed? Oh
no,
yeah,
acid.
yeah.
I wish. All the characters were like catch that thing.
Like on Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Reptile.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Blue and white
Water?
actually I think do ice. Yeah. And then red does fire.
Okay.
And some of them do. There's another difference between dragons. Some of them will do a line attack, right? Something that's like fire down a line, and some of them will do cones, but don't go as far. It kind of depends on your dragon. Which will actually, I'm going to talk about dragons here in a second. So once you have that all set up, you have a story.
Is there hold on. We're being asked, is there a rainbow dragon?
No, there should be though. That'd be cool as fuck. So that's actually plus what, that's a great introduction. Good job. As a DM, you can make whatever the fuck you want.
Okay.
Right?
I always felt like you had to stick to a specific thing.
You have rules. They're more like not to quote a Disney movie, but Pirates of the Caribbean when he's like, they're not rules, they're guidelines. And that's really what it is, right? They're guidelines. I mean, don't be a freaking asshole. But I like how I bleeped out
Thank you for not swearing. This is a PG.
Anyway, so you can make your own rules. You can make a rainbow dragon that is able to do all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, and if you can make that fun, I think that's great. My biggest thing with DMs is here's a couple of don'ts.
Okay.
Some DMs want to kill their players. I think that's a bad way to look at it, right?
Well, if you die, then your story ends, right?
Yeah, you're dead. There's nothing to bring you back. It just sucks.
Isn't there like a revive spell?
There is, but there's different.
Okay, I'm getting too far off the path here. Okay,
so
you don't want one of the rules. You don't kill.
It's not that you don't. So here's how I play.
Okay.
If you do something stupid enough to kill your character, that's on you, bro. I will not put your character in death's way unless you do. So again, if all of a sudden you see a rainbow dragon and you're a low-level character and you're like, I'm going to go fucking fight it, you're going to die, right? That's on you, bro. Obviously, I want you to flee from this thing, right? But I'm not going to be like, and you see this timid little creature, and then you go up to it, and it uses a death spell. Dead motherfucker. Like, for me, it's not fun for anybody, right? That's not fun for anybody.
No. No.
It's not fun for the character who just lost that, especially, so some of my campaigns have lasted a year and a half. If I played a year and 2 months, and someone killed my character, I'd kill them in real life. You go night-night. Like, that's it. Right? Like, I put a lot of time and effort into that character. That's why a lot of my characters are really hard to kill. Like, I make it so, especially like if I'm playing with somebody that I don't know, there is a monk in D&D 5e it's called Way of the Dying Fist or something close to that.
Okay.
It's hard. It can't die. Like, it's pretty much unkillable. You, especially at higher levels, like you can't kill it.
Okay.
I play that character. I'm like, you can't kill me because I can't die. And then that way they can't kill me because a lot of DMs think that way, and I think that's a stupid thing. When I write like a campaign, so listen, we're talking a little bit about just like starting out a session with some buddies, but some like notes that I like to hit on if I'm playing.
Kind of some do's and don'ts if you're starting out here.
So if I'm playing a campaign, however, I'm going to be telling a story. I like to think of it as a movie, right? I want the beginning, the climax, and the end, right? So I'm playing it like a movie. I already kind of know the things that are gonna happen, and then players can kind of move certain things I didn't think were gonna happen, and I get to think. That's why I think it's best to play on a week-to-week basis instead of a day-to-day. A lot of people will play like, hey, let's play every day for a month, and that'll be like 20 weeks, right? The only problem with that is it's hard to like plan what people are going to do because people are very unpredictable.
That doesn't feel cliche at all.
Yeah, but they very much are. You're playing a DM, you're like, oh, I know how this is going to play out. And then people will do the weirdest shit, and you're like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? That doesn't even make like logical sense. And they do it anyway, and you're like, okay. And so you got to like come up with like what happened because of that, right?
So let me kind of help here. This is more for me, and maybe for I don't know 85% of the rest of the people that are watching or listening. So you're DMing, right? You create this story in your mind and write it down, and now you've got this story of how you want this to go while you guys are playing, right? So it's an adventure or whatever it is, and they're walking down a path, and now they've come across a choice they've got to make now.
Yeah.
And so do you give them like, okay, these are your 3 choices, or do you say, what are you going to do? And then that's when it's like, oh shit, where did you, nobody puts their foot in water and grabs, an electric line. Like nobody does that.
I do that. I like to give my players choice. I'm like, all right, what do you do? Right? I don't like to do your 3 choices are this, this, and this.
Okay.
Some of my favorite campaign ideas, especially if you're looking for like an evil campaign, one that was really fun for me was we did assassins. And so you would give them a target to kill, and they couldn't get caught. They couldn't be known as those are the people that assassinated them, right? And it was really funny to see people's like wheels turn of like, hey, we could do this, and then it wouldn't be really and you kind of go through all these things, and then obviously you're there as the DM, so you're kind of listening and trying to like, hey, because it's improv, right?
Yeah.
The minute somebody goes, again, something that is really annoying, and this will be on one of my players' don'ts, is the fireball guy, right? I had a buddy, Eric. Every time you would see the main bad guy be like, fireball. And I'm like, let him fucking talk. This is a fucking movie moment, motherfucker. And he'd be like, fucking fireball. And I'm like, you asshole. Stop. Like, let this guy talk. And that's one of the things. So me and somebody else I DM with quite often is my buddy Patrick. My buddy Patrick, for some reason, maybe because I think people know he'll fucking fight them in real life, they never fuck with his characters to the extent that do mine. My fucking bosses, it's so hard for them to talk because the minute they see him, they're like, fucking kill him. And I'm like, but you can't. He's a main bad guy. Anyway, so again, that's something you have to think about, right? You're going to have your fireball guy. You're going to have your another one is characters who just randomly take all the items.
Right.
You're like, well, you got to like make it bad for them. I usually, when I'm starting to DM, if I'm having a campaign, I give them like very light parameters, right? Like if we're playing campaign about elves, be like, oh, you all have to be elves. Okay. And there has to be a reason you're joining this team. That's usually how I always start. Like, there has to be a reason you're joining X team. And I usually give them kind of like the basis behind the team, right?
Okay.
So that way they're not, oh, well, I steal from all these people. And they kind of do asshole things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back to like if you're starting anew, this is you starting as a DM, things that you can do once you have that, is play off of your strengths, right? If you can do voices, do voices. If you are a really good storyteller, give there moments where you can tell a story, right? Think of that stuff when you're DMing because that's the stuff that is going to make you shine.
Right. So like, what do you do in just to kind of go back? So you've got this planned out. You give them light parameters so they can kind of choose it. What do you do if somebody's like, you walk into a town and you're looking for somebody, I guess, to assassinate or whatever, and this one person's like, well, I'm going to play jump rope, and hopefully the rope wraps, I don't know, whatever, but something completely that you weren't, what do you do at that point? Do you just improv and be like, okay, there's a tunnel there that goes into the town?
No, so I don't
do?
always reward bad behavior, because they're like dogs. Okay, you gotta Caesar Milan. Okay, you don't want to. Sometimes I will, if people do like gutsy behavior, I will reward it every once in a while, right?
Okay.
But I will not reward bad behavior. If you're an asshole and you're playing, you're probably not going to get rewarded unless I think it would actually work.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Because otherwise, it's just going to teach that guy, like, oh, well, the jump rope worked last time. Let's keep going. Like, fuck that guy, right? Then again, if we're ever playing Dungeons and Dragons and you're like, I jump rope, your character's dead. I'll kill him. I don't know how, but I will find a way.
It works.
No, but there's a lot of, there's actually a video on YouTube. You guys should go check it out. It's Pete. What's his name? Oh, he's a comedian. Anyway, he's the show. He's a comedian, and he does a spiff on D&D.
Okay.
And it's his first time playing D&D, and he's like, well, I stay at the tavern, and what steak do I get? And the whole time they're like going out and trying to fight monsters, and he's like, and then the wine, what kind of wine do they have? I've every once in a while had characters that have done that where they're like, I'm not going on that mission. And
so what do you do with that?
You just let them play. You let them play it out. I think that there's, again, you can't force people to do it, but
but I guess me as somebody that's wanting to play a game, and you go out to, like, that's your goal, right? You're like, hey, come DM me. It just feels strange, but come DM me, and my buddies, and let's do it. And then I'm like, I'm going to sit on the bench.
Exactly. Well, and
why
so
are you doing that?
You don't get it often. Again, actually, one of the ones that was in the assassination mission, we were, this was actually one of the ones my buddy was DMing, and we were like, we're not going on that mission. That's like suicide. They're like pretty much telling us like, hey, go fight these 100 people. They're like, anybody fighting 100 people dies. Like, I don't care if they're 8-year-olds. You're
it goes back to, remember, this is totally off topic and random, but I just reminded me of this because I wanted to ask it. I know this is your show and this is your podcast and this is your live stream, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Could you fight, what was it, 100
8-year-olds?
8-year-olds and win?
I think yes. Right? Now the difference in D&D is they have to roll a dice.
Oh, okay.
And if they roll a natural 20, they will do more damage, right? So the likelihood of 100 people rolling, especially when you're at lower levels, 100 people rolling, that means on average 5 people would roll natural 20. 5 people would roll 19, which would mean that's usually a hit on most people, right? So you're already getting hit 10 times. At lower levels, that's going to kill you. Now, at high levels, you could probably, I don't recommend doing a session where you kill 108-year-olds. But I mean, whatever fits your lifestyle, right? I don't really know you. Maybe you like to kill 8-year-olds. That's stop
please.
watching.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Go report yourself.
Yeah, go report yourself. But
anywho,
yes, I could kill 108-year-olds. So I'm high enough level.
You're speaking of the game.
Yes.
Not in real life.
No, in real life. Level 20 paladin.
Lots of hugs and cuddles.
Well, that is another person. Sorry, I'm going to kind of bring up things that we're going to talk about in a whole other YouTube video. If you are a person that are like, no, don't wrong. I like to talk about it. What character are you in, like, real life? What are your real life stats? If you say,
the hell does that mean?
So in D&D, you have stats, right? There's strength, dexterity, constitution. So obviously strength is pretty obvious. It's your fucking strength. Dexterity is how hard you are to hit, right? And like nimble, right? In case you guys don't have a dictionary. Constitution is how much health you have. So it's the higher your constitution, the higher your health. Intelligence. If you don't know that, You don't get to. Your intelligence is low.
Go ahead and scroll past.
Just go down. Wisdom is more like knowledge that you already have obtained, right?
Okay.
A little different than intelligence. Charisma. Okay. Charisma is like how well you're liked, right?
Okay.
Google it. Anyway.
I didn't realize you had to be charismatic.
Yeah, there's plenty of classes like Paladin's my favorite, that you have to be charismatic. And those are the best characters because those are the ones that people like you, right?
Ah, okay.
But if you're saying like what are my stats? If you say my charisma is 18, it's not. It's probably not. It's probably a 10, which is average. Probably lower.
But I think you got on this because you said that like what are your what?
Yeah, no.
What are your stats in real life?
Yeah. So usually people will bring those up.
Like,
right?
are you talking like Wood here, Jay there, and like real life Jay? What are your?
I've heard this. Yeah, I know, dude.
Why?
So a lot of people like to talk about it, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm a talker, obviously, but a lot of guys like to talk about their
strength. What's the top strength?
Well, technically, I mean, 26 if you use magical items, 20 if you didn't.
Okay, so like me, IRL, I'm like a solid 7.
No, because 10 is average. 10 is average.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick with this.
Well, that's the funny thing. So again, I think
charisma. Let's go 26.
Well, so that's honestly, it's always the worst.
I'm a paladin, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, dude, fucking, they're the best. Anyway, it's people always talking about. It's okay. There's a type of anime, right? It's a type of anime called isekai, which means usually it's my level. It's like a 30-year-old guy like myself, who gets transported into an anime and he ends up having a lot of powers and bitches are all over him, right? So usually,
pretty sure that's
a bunch of
you, after me.
Yeah, a bunch of you weebs, and me. It's me too. I think about it all the time. But think about like if you got transported into something, right?
Right.
Like so you all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah.
You're reading a book, and all of a
It's
sudden
like,
now you're a slime in the middle of a country.
Yeah.
And so a lot of guys will think about this, like, "Hey, man, if we went into our D&D world, what would it be? Like, I mean, like, what would we be?"
Oh, yeah.
And so,
okay. And do you find that when you're talking to those guys that ask that, their charisma is usually like a 1?
Yes, it's always. Well, and that's the thing. When we had a guy that we played with named Salty. This is one of those things. Legitimately, I don't know his fucking name. Dude. I've known that kid for 2.5 fucking years. I still don't want to ask him his name because I feel so. It's one of those things where I was like, oh, he goes, "Hey, I go by Salty," and I'm like, "All right, cool, Salty." And then after 6 months, I'm like, "Fuck, I don't know his name," but I've known him long enough. I can't ask for his fucking name.
Yeah, it gets to a point you can't.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, "Hey, Salty." So seriously, what's your fucking real name? If he murdered everybody at the DM, like everybody we're playing D&D with, and cops came up to me and were like, "What's his fucking name?" I'd be one of those idiots who was like, "Salty," and they'd be like, "No, seriously, what's his real name?" I'm like, "No, seriously, all I know him is by Salty." And they'd be like, "You're an idiot," and I'm like, "I know."
Yeah, but IRL 26.
Exactly. So, so a lot of them, every time I've had a guy, so Salty, sorry, I had a rant.
Yeah.
He was he's a pretty strong fella.
Okay.
So he would talk about it. He'd be like, "Oh well, by carrying weight. So you have a carrying weight, how much you can carry as a character.
Okay.
Before you get over and cucumbered, and you would get that, and he'd be like, "Oh well, I can hold this much weight, so I bet you my strength would be around an 18." Okay. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty cool." Dexterity, you can't really say, but you could be like, "Oh, you're a pretty limber, stealthy kid, so yours would probably be pretty high." Oh, hey, your pain tolerance is way high, so you'd probably have high,
Yeah.
Intelligence, wisdom, same thing. Charisma is always someone else should give you, because obviously
I feel like that's hands down that's a thing.
Because everybody
you can't choose your own charisma.
No, and everybody who says what their own charisma is isn't charismatic.
No,
I've had guys that do their
I think that's just generally across the board in life. Period.
Yeah.
Like if you think you're a badass in life, everyone thinks I'm so funny. Watch, unless you're Kevin Hart. Yeah. You're not. I'm sorry.
There's a quote by Bruce Lee, whatever. He says, "He who speaks does not know." Right, and it's one of those things that I've held very true throughout my life. Like, obviously, if you're good at something, I think you can kind of brag about it a little bit.
Sure.
Like Tom Brady can be like, "Yeah, I'm the best fucking quarterback," and we'll be like,
Yeah.
But if you're playing D&D and you're like, my charisma is like an 18, I promise you it's not, and it's way lower, and you just need to shut up. So anyway, I had a guy that was one of the first things he would always. The first time I met him, so it was one of those things where it was the first time he meets me.
Okay.
Apparently, whenever people meet me, they need to give their friends like fucking warnings and be like, "Hey, by the way, Jeremy's coming. He's kind of an asshole, and he says some things that probably shouldn't say." I mean, I'm not yelling out the N-word or anything. I just fucking am more vulgar, right? And and he's like, so first time I meet him, he's like, so I would be a bard, and mind you, this guy is not okay.
Okay, what's a bard?
So a bard is somebody that, okay, you know what? We're going to touch on a lot of characters, and we're going back to DMing, okay?
We're not going to touch on them. We're just going.
A bard is somebody that plays music usually at inns and stuff like that. They're very charismatic. They can sing. They can do stuff like that.
Okay.
Most people play those as ladies' men because in Critical Role, which is a fairly popular show, and a lot of guys do, it's a great show. One of the guys played it as a ladies' man. They think charisma is just getting poon. That's a part of it. But as a guy who's ugly and busted as fuck, but is fair, I mean, I'm kind of funny, right? More than some of you fuckers. Sorry, I don't know why I got defensive there. Fuck you. No, anyway, so when they're playing a bard, they immediately are hitting on every girl, and it's kind of annoying. And again, it's one of those things where we talked about.
So it's like it's the guy. So you're like, okay, I'm gonna DM, bring some of your buddies. So now you have like a group of, I don't know, 6 people, right? Let's just say weird averages. In the DM, you're male. You got 2 guys show up with 4 ladies. Now one of them's a bar. Yeah, this I know. It's probably never happened ever. But let's just assume that.
Yeah.
So one of them's a bar, and he's like, "Yeah, ladies, all of you." Like, I feel like there's ulterior motives there, that he's hoping that his bard becomes IRL.
Exactly.
And they're like, "I want to go home with you."
Exactly.
IRL. No.
Exactly.
I keep saying IRL because I like that. But yeah, he wants to go home with them.
Exactly.
You're an idiot.
Yeah.
I could roll you out the same height as you walked.
Exactly. That's always my favorite thing. Again, if it was like Salty's a pretty good looking dude. He was never the I'm gonna hit on ladies. Usually he's like, I'm kind of shy. Well, obviously he's playing D&D. He's like fucking talking to ladies and shit. But it's really fun. One of my favorite things. We used to have a girl and a guy that played, and they were together. This is also another no-no. Do not play with your girlfriend. It is not a good idea.
I've heard this. No, I haven't heard that you shouldn't, but I have heard of couples that do a lot.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Why?
Okay, so the reason it's not is it can start a lot of in my opinion, usually you have to side with your girl. Right?
Yeah.
So if she is a terrible player and she's like, well, I think we should go fight 1,000 goblins, you feel almost inclined to be like, we probably should, honey, because you know that if you don't, she might take it against you, right?
Yeah. Like at the end of the game.
Exactly. I think you should always
should
always hold it different. Same with like when you're working, right? You have people that are good workers, but they're terrible people, and the vice versa. You have people that are terrible workers, but they're great people. You kind of treat it the same way. But one of the couples, dude, they were so bad. He would say something of like, he would try to do like a sexual joke. She'd be like, "That's weird because in bed you're really vanilla." We're like, oh, fuck. Shots fired. Holy shit. Mind you, if my girlfriend was playing with me and she said, "You're vanilla in bed" in front of 6 of my other friends, I'd drown her. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. I would probably drown her. Like, immediately. It would be weird.
So I knew this couple. I guess I know them because they're not dead. They still exist. And they play religiously every Tuesday night. And she would tell me, "Yeah, I get into character real big, and I enjoy getting into character, and sometimes." So it was this couple, they were married, and they played with the husband's, some of his siblings and their spouses. So it was like a family thing, kind of. And she said, I get into character so much that, like, I, like, my sister-in-law wants to fight me. And I'm going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like really, she wanted to fight her because she got so into this character that she's, like, insulting everybody.
Yeah.
Like, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't insult somebody. It was a game.
Yeah, and a lot of people hide behind. If you start insulting like a character, not a lot of people take offense to that, right?
Yeah.
But if you start like insulting their person and stuff like that, you can. Especially, here's another thing. Just if you're playing, a lot of people play the characters as themselves in a different, like, same kind of isekai, right? Where they got kind of transported into this world. A lot of people play their same type of personality because it's easy for them. So I always play like a variation of myself. I played a druid once. That was a bad idea. It was one of my
a druid.
A druid.
Oh, a druid.
So it's like a nature person. So they use a lot of, like, they have a animal companion. They're very, like, nature oriented. They love nature. Wouldn't kill a spider, and they're like super, like, they're pagan. So they just believe in, like, nature gods and stuff like that. But
okay, weird.
I got. So, like, I stopped killing bugs. Like, it takes on a thing for me, right? Like
like real life, you stopped.
Yeah. I stopped killing. Dude, I don't know. I take it a little bit too far. But, like,
That's an ant.
my buddy's like, hey, man, on the way here, I killed a raccoon. And I'm like, I'll fucking murder you. Like, don't you ever kill it. Like, watch the road, you piece of garbage.
My guy says.
Exactly. Instead of being like, hey, dude, are you okay? Hey, man, was that traumatizing? I'm like, you killed an animal. You should die. Anyway, did you eat the carcass? Well, you should have. Stop wasting. Anyway, so I was kind of one of those guys. But, yeah, it's that. Okay, so you know what? This is how we're going to tie it all in.
Okay.
These are the type of things you're going to have to deal with as a DM. These type of character differences. These type of everything, right? Someone's playing a druid, they're probably going to be against people killing rats, and you got to realize, like, you got to play to their likes and dislikes and give them. I always like to give people movie moments, so I like to, like, do a little story within a story. Right? I have my main outline, and then I'm going to do little stories that touch on a character and make them the star of the show for a single night or a couple nights, right? And they're going to have their own story. And, you know, like, one of them, I was playing a drunken monk, and my buddy Patrick did it where, like, my brother had killed my wife. My brother-in-law had killed my wife. And, like, it was, like, my revenge on this guy, right? And so I had this movie moment of me fighting him in, like, a kung fu fight surrounded by monks and me beating him. And it was one of these things where it, like, sends shivers up your spine because it's like a movie, right? Except you're involved.
But you're the guy.
But you're the guy.
Yeah.
So, like, another one that was really great, same character, but we cut one of the guys rolls a natural 20, cuts off a limb. It ends up cutting off the leg that I was holding on to. Well, now I have a leg in my hand. Of course I'm going to beat the shit out of the guy with it. That's hilarious. So I end up killing him with his leg the next round because he didn't have that much health. I, like, bashed his face in with his own leg. It was so beautiful and movie moment, and that's the stuff you want to, like, strive for, right? That's the stuff that you want. You don't have to have, like, a lot of
so as a DM, you want your audience to feel engaged to the point where they're getting shivers down.
Exactly. So I like to do things that immerse people into it as much as they can. Now, I don't expect people to dress up because that's kind of annoying, right? It's also, depending on your character, could be a pain in the ass.
I could imagine.
Yeah. So, like, me, I was like, for one of mine, I was a monk. I just wore robes. I could wear robes I don't care. It's just comfortable robes. I don't give a shit. My balls are flowing. But the other character I played was a paladin in heavy armor. Well, I'm not going to show up every day to your house in heavy armor because that'd be fucking stupid.
And it's a lot of money.
Exactly,
Let's be honest here.
So I like to immerse my people into the character as much as I can. For example, I'll give you a couple examples. A lot of times, just something simple. I'll always have music playing. Usually I do it from the Elder Scrolls, but I always have music playing that's similar to the thing they're in. If they're in a dungeon, I play more dungeon-esque music. That's a word. And if it's if they're in a bard, or sorry, a bard. If they're in a bard, I'd play moaning noise. No. So I'll play. If they're in a tavern, I'll play tavern ambience, right? So that you can hear people, and so they kind of get into it. That's a quick way to do it. Just play it on your iPhone or play it on some surrounding stuff. A lot of times I will put up pictures of the people that they're like. I'll hook up my laptop to TV, and so I can show them pictures of the characters that they're fighting, or the main bad guy. I can put him up every time, and I can have his own theme music. It's little stuff like that that gets people kind of immersed into it. And if you can do stuff like that, now my buddy Patrick, he's an architect. He takes it a little farther. He like builds like 3D models of freaking churches. I can't do that because I'm stupid. So I can't do that type of stuff. Again, if you're good at voices and you can do voices, that's another way to immerse people into it. Using like, hey, what do you want? Now don't use that guy every time. One of the DMs we played. No, what do you want? I'm like, isn't that the same guy? Literally, he says the same thing every fucking time.
He's like the guy on the video games. It reminds me of like the Zelda on Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
They walk into the store and he's like, welcome, traveler.
Exactly.
What can I get for you?
Exactly. Except if every character, that's how he did like every character. He'd be like, what you want? And I'm like, bro, that was literally the guy right before this. What you want? I'm like, that's a lady. What you want? And I'm like, that's a child. Okay, we need to stop this shit, okay? Doing stuff to immerse people into it. Ones that like I've taken a little farther. So one of my favorite campaign ideas is doing a Dante's Inferno where you send your characters to hell, right?
Okay.
It's great. They actually have a new book, which we're going to go over. I'm going to buy that book, and we're going to go over it because it's my favorite goddamn thing. It's amazing. Anyway, so that's a bunch of demons, stuff like that. So I go through Dante's Inferno. One of them is gluttony. And gluttony is full of trash that people are just shoving in their face. They actually sell candles that smell like garbage. I will light a garbage candle so that people have like that sensory, right? They like smell garbage, and every time they see that map, they're like, that's disgusting. It like kind of brings back that thing, and I think you should try to do that, right? Try to immerse your players as much as you can, because that's what's going to keep them coming. That's what's going to get them into it and actually, take it a little more serious. So
yeah,
stuff like that. If you can do anything extra, like I said, play to your strengths. If you got stuff about you're good at voices, or you're good at computer stuff, or you're good at music, or you're good at anything, even recording certain people's what they're gonna say is great. And I think that's, if you can do stuff like that, like I said, bringing in items like I'm gonna spend, like he has a paddle and you actually have a paddle in your hand. It just kind of brings people into it, and I think that's the best way to do it, really.
Because you're just trying to draw, basically, like you said a few minutes ago, you're trying to create that movie moment for each person that you're DMing for, right? And
I think again, it's your story, right? Don't get caught up in, like, cool monsters and, oh, hey, I want them to fight this monster because it's a cool monster. If you can't make, really, your thing should be able to strive that you can make an entire session based on goblins. They're the lowest form of life in here. If you can make that really fun and really interesting and really like compelling for players, you've done it as a DM, and that's what you should try to search for. Trying to, again, if you have to make a whole campaign, there's an anime, watch it. Goblin Slayer, watch it. It's all about killing goblins. If you can make a whole campaign about goblins and you can make it cool and fun and inviting for players, people will love that, because, and that's what you should work on. It is an art, right? As stupid as that is to say, it is an art.
I wouldn't say that's stupid at all.
Matt Mercer, he's the one that does it on Critical Role. He does really good voices, and he kind of takes on things. Even he messes up. So if you mess up, learn from your mistake, work on it the next time, and or talk to your players and try to work on it. So take your time, have fun with it. It's your story. Think about it, write it down, have fun with your friends. That's really what it's all about, is having fun. If all your players love to fight crazy monsters, throw some crazy monsters at them. If not, then, work on yourself. Work on it. I promise, once you get really good at it, people won't want other people to DM, right? We had a guy who played.
You.
Yeah, exactly. We played with a guy, and everybody voted him out and ended up voting me in. And then we played, and nobody wants, and that's a huge.
It's no wonder you're a paladin.
I know. Charisma as fuck, bro. Anyway, So that's it for today. Again, we're going to talk about this. I'll talk about stuff about DM. Really, I'm stopping because I got to pee, and it's like 80 minutes in. So anyway, have fun. DM, play, have fun, and let me know how it goes. Comment and everything.
All right, guys. Catch you on the next.
Next.